7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Two things in life that suck: death, taxes, and 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for die-hard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today's episode is number 11, entitled War Wounds. So today's episode is going to touch on a multitude of things. We'll recap the preseason game. We'll talk about the players whose stock rose after the game and the players whose stock fell. We'll also talk about some of the injuries that we have recently gone through, as well as the upcoming game this Thursday against the Lions. Let's kick it off. So we'll start off today with a new segment called Medical Report. Being that a lot of our news has been injury related, I decided to start this segment. Brandon LaFleur has a hand ligament injury, and he could possibly be back by week 1, but this is without surgery. With surgery, he'd be out for 6 weeks, and he would also lose a huge chunk in his hand. That can't be good. Cedric Ogbuehi, our right tackle, is scheduled to miss 2 to 3 weeks. He's actually got a case of turf toe, but Marvin expects him to play in the season opener versus the Jets, but this kind of scares me. We'll touch on that later. Andrew Billings, the 4th round pick, the defensive tackle that everyone loved, tore his meniscus in practice and is out indefinitely. And I'm being told that if there was trimming in his meniscus, that there's a chance that he could come back for the regular season. But if the meniscus was repaired during his surgery, he's expected to go on IR. Jeremy Hill suffered a minor hand injury during the game against the Vikings, but appears to be okay. And Mario Alford and Cody Core also suffered minor injuries. Moving on to our next segment, announcements. And my first announcement is that the Way Too Early 53 is coming. But after everything that transpired within the past couple of days and everything that happened in Game 1, it was only right for me to wait until after Game 2 to release my Way Too Early 53. That way it actually makes sense. So look for that this Saturday. My second announcement is that unfortunately we made the decision that New Stripe City is leaving SoundCloud. We're looking at some of our other options right now. We may consider TuneIn. We may consider Podcast One. So keep an eye out and an ear out. Third, I had the pleasure of having the AFC Northerners on my last show. Make sure to check it out. I'll also put a link in the description. But you can also find that in the iTunes store on our podcast channel at New Stripe City, on our Facebook at New Stripe City, or our YouTube channel. So check that out. It was a very good episode. Unfortunately, the audio wasn't the best, but I've worked on a remedy for that solution going forward. And be on the lookout for another collaboration.
Another one.
Or I will be a guest on their show. So stay tuned. And now, the meat and potatoes of New Stripe City, I bring to you Bengals Real Talk. So recapping the Bengals preseason game, I'm going to discuss some of the positives and some of the negatives. So when we kicked off the game, I would say that some of the positives were that our first team offense seemed to be in a very good rhythm. I mean, the main pieces in this offense have been playing together since 2011, but Andy and AJ were clearly on the same page. Jeremy Hill had some pep in his step. I really liked the way that the first team offense came out and performed. I'd also say that the defense was definitely a positive after this game. Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, those guys were really out there getting around, and this looks like it could be a very dominant defense this season. Of course, we also saw some depth from the rookie wide receiver position. It's a position that we had a lot of question marks, but we got a lot of answers from some players that we weren't expecting to get answers from, like Alex Erickson, Tyler Boyd, who is as well as he's being advertised. He looks to establish himself in a role pretty early and often. Cody Core was another guy who looked pretty good out there. He's a little bit of a developmental player, but he looked pretty good for stepping in and not having much experience in the NFL. I'd also say that the offensive line looks solid. Andrew Whitworth sat out this game. Cedric Ogbuye and Jake Fisher actually got a chance to play, and honestly, I couldn't tell a difference. These guys were very solid. The run game looked great. The pass protection for Andy was perfect. He didn't really see too much pressure. So those guys gave us a huge vote of confidence for next year. Now to the negatives. Mike Nugent just looked very horrible. I don't understand it. The guy comes out, the Bengals drive down. We're supposed to take the lead over the game, starting off, and Mike Nugent just misses a field goal. I mean, it's typical Mike Nugent. I don't understand what's going on. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know what it is. But Mike Nugent has not been a good kicker for us. And I know it's only preseason, but we've seen this strike us before. So I'm a little bit concerned about Mike Nugent. My second concern is the enigma known as Marcus Hunt. He also, again, failed to establish himself this year. And even with the coaching and everything, it doesn't look like the guy gets it. The light bulb hasn't come on. And it's really, honestly, a disappointment. I don't get what this guy is doing. So he was another negative. The third negative, I would say, is the injuries. I mean, we've got guys falling left and right in practice. And this game also contributed to that. You had a guy like Cody Core get hurt. You had a guy like Mario Alford have a minor tweak. So that's not really helping us in the grand scheme of things of figuring out the best 53 for this roster. Next, I'll talk about players who I believe that their stock is rising. The number one guy, Alex Erickson. He's a guy that was compared by many to Julian Edelman. And I heard the hype and I looked and saw the news and heard about him, but this guy is legit. He almost pretty much stamped and solidified his spot on this roster. So definitely I'd say Alex Erickson. A guy like Trey Carson, one of the running backs that played late, this guy looked pretty good. He made some pretty good runs at the end of the game. He showed that burst. He showed some power. He looks like a guy that might be able to compete with Rex Burkhead for that fourth spot. AJ McCarron looked very fluid out there with the second offense. Another guy under the radar, I'd say, is Jeff Luke. Jeff Luke actually made the transition from linebacker to fullback and looked pretty good. He looked pretty natural at the position. So he's trying to carve himself out a niche to make this roster. And of course, Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd from day one, his stock is rising. This guy, with the injury to Brandon LaFell, this guy could take over easily as the second receiver in this offense this year. I mean, even with a healthy LaFell, this guy was doing his thing. And on the defensive side of the ball, we're looking at guys like Will Clark. Now, even though Marcus Hunt disappointed, Will Clark is definitely a guy that has shown some improvement and has made strides. So I was excited to see him. I'd also say that Nick Vigil also looked pretty good. He played all three linebacker spots in this game. He played special teams. I think he's on the rise. Now, one thing I will say is I think we need to kind of rein it back or scale back a little bit on the Luke Kuechly comparison. I mean, Luke Kuechly is honestly probably, if not the best linebacker in the NFL. So setting the bar that high is a little bit of a reach. So let's let him play it out. But overall, he had a great performance. Marcus Hardison. Marcus Hardison is a guy who's could end up taking Marcus Hunt's role, honestly. He was a guy that was very active during the game, and his stock is definitely on the up. I can't complain. Jimmy Wilson. Jimmy Wilson is a free agent acquisition, and he also had pretty good game. Rashawn Simonese, he had another nice play during the game. So there were a lot of guys in which some guys weren't predicted to have a huge impact this year or make the roster, but definitely made an argument for sticking to this roster. Players whose stock fell during this game, I definitely say Marcus Hunt. I mean, do I really need to say more? Mike Nugent. I'd probably also say Chykie Brown, who got burnt. And Alonzo Russell. Alonzo Russell's kind of in the medium. He's almost unchanged, but I really need to see more from him to determine whether he's going to be worth one of those receiver spots. So next, I'd like to discuss the injuries. So as we all know, the injuries were really pretty bad, starting off with William Jackson III. We also lost Andrew Billings, which was a tough loss. This was a guy that I really looked forward to watching this year. Now, his role that he was going to play was very minimal this year. He probably would have been a rotational kind of guy, but it still would have been interesting to see if he could have made that jump and how he would have performed against the run. It's so crucial. I think the loss hurts the fan base a little bit more, but the team is still in good shape. We still have Pat Sims, who's a very good nose tackle, might I add. So we should be in good shape there. In regards to said, our OL, I'd probably say that I'm the most worried about this injury. This guy is scheduled to be the starting right tackle, and he has turf toe, and that really worries me because turf toe is an injury that can leave and come back. So I'm really worried about how this will affect Cedric Ogbuyi. It's because, a lot of offensive linemen, they technically use footwork, and it's a part of what they do aside from using their hands. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. In the meantime, we have Jake Fisher that can fill in, and I'm pretty sure Jake Fisher will do exactly what is needed and asked of him until Ced can get back. Tyler Eifert is another huge injury for us. CJ Uzomah didn't necessarily play bad, but he didn't play up to my expectations. I thought that he could kind of be a guy that was a little bit of a sleeper. So Tyler Eifert, we're going to have to get him back. From what I've heard, he's been practicing over on the side. He could be back as early as week 1, but we will see. Hopefully we can get the Eifert Tower back out there because we are going to need him. Darqueze Dennard, he's expected to be out the next couple of weeks, and without him, corner has looked quite slim. Chris Lewis Harris is out there doing his thing, but Cover a magazine. That's how bad he is. We've got to get Dennard back. No questions about it. And LaFell, another key injury. I think Hollowboy can step in, but that's another key loss. It's just like this year, man. It's almost mirroring 2014, which I'm scared about. But these aren't injuries that can, I guess in a sense, kill our season. So I'm not necessarily in full panic mode now. If some other injuries occur, I might start to hit the panic button. But as far as right now, not really too many injuries that will, in a sense, incite panic. But it's Thursday. The Bengals play the Lions. It's going to be Marvin Jones's first time back playing his former team, us as the Cincinnati Bengals. It'll be interesting to see how things go down. I'm kind of looking to see who exactly from the wide receiver position continues to establish and separate themselves. As of now, I feel like the only guys that are really almost in a position to make the roster are AJ Green, of course, that's default. Tyler Boyd, that's default. And I feel like Erickson has solidified his spot. Now, some of the other guys may need to do that. I look to see more from a CJ Uzomah. I also look to see more from a Paul Dawson, more from our defensive line and how these guys can step it up. I really want to throw in the towel on Marcus Hunt, but he's going to have to show us something in these next 3 games if he wants to make the roster. Okay? But that's all I have for you guys for today's show. I hope that you enjoyed it. As always, comment, subscribe. We'll be back after the Vikings game to deliver our analysis as well as that way too early 53. Check that out. It's going to be posted on newstripecity.blogspot.com. We'll definitely get in tune here. So, as usual, Who Day, all day, every day, especially Sunday.